Okay, thank you everyone for joining the Resource Sharing Directory webinar. My name is Megan Weldon. I am the Rapido Product Manager here at Libris. Okay, a few items so that we're all on the same page today. Today's webinar is most relevant to libraries that use Alma. If you're joining us from a library that doesn't use Alma, you're welcome to be here. It just may not be as relevant as a session for you today. As far as connecting today, I encourage you to use the chat feature. That way then we can make sure all of your questions or interests are addressed. I will engage with the chat after I've gone through my slides today. Our slides won't take too long, so we will have plenty of time to address items in the chat at the end of this session. Also, if you would like to use closed captions for today's session, WebEx has that feature and you can enable it in the lower left corner of your screen. If you have technical issues today, I apologize. I don't have the capacity to help you troubleshoot those today. I will suggest that you try to exit and rejoin the session and see if that works for you. That's what I will be doing if I encounter issues today. And we'll make the recording available, so if all else fails, you can engage with us via the recording today. I'm also providing my email address, megan.weldon@clarabit.com, so that way then we can connect if there are items that we don't address together in the webinar today, or if you have thoughts or questions at a later date on this topic. Okay, so what are we covering today? All of the important questions. What is the resource sharing directory? Who can use the resource sharing directory? Why use the resource sharing directory? And how could the resource sharing directory be used? I think the only question I don't ask here is the when, and I'll leave that up to you. Hopefully after today's session, you can go ahead and engage with the resource sharing directory. Okay, so what is the resource sharing directory? The resource sharing directory simply is a database of resource sharing partners. It's a database that has accurate information as it is made up of self-enrollment by partners and partners records that are used from the directory are automatically updated as the contributing library can make those updates and then they get distributed. The directory is a means to connect a community of libraries, and it identifies resource sharing partners that are using Alma. So what does that look like? Here is just a screenshot of the resource sharing directory. Don't worry, later in our session, I will show you how to get to this screen in your Alma environment. But as we talk about the resource sharing directory today, this is what you can expect it to look like. Okay, so who can join the resource sharing directory? What libraries might we expect to see in that list? So the libraries that can be in the directory are libraries that are using Alma, libraries that are using Alma resource sharing, libraries that are using Alma and Iliad resource sharing, or libraries that are using Alma and only Iliad resource sharing. Libraries using Rapido are automatically added to the resource sharing directory, and eventually the directory will be able to host libraries that are using other brokers too. But as it is with existing capacity, the directory has a great potential to grow and exist as a huge network of over 2,000 libraries. So why? Why should I add my resource sharing library to the directory? So the first reason really is that resource sharing is made up of a community, and the work of resource sharing services and libraries are a community and collaborative effort. My work in libraries began as a student assistant in interlibrary loan services, and since the very beginning, I've heard librarians and library staff and witnessed the power of the resource sharing community and the impact that it can have, and how folks will go so far to deliver services for library users that aren't even at their own institution. And this is all dependent, really, our resource sharing services are dependent and supported by those resource sharing partners in our resource sharing community. And it's a community that has a great willingness and eagerness to share knowledge, share wisdom, share stories, and generally collaborate with one another. So the resource sharing directory is a place to help start those collaborations, help start those partnerships, and support that community in building resource sharing partners across platforms. So to support cross-platform interoperability, to leverage the Libris resource sharing community, and to help save staff time in building resource sharing partnerships. It's a tool for the resource sharing community. Thinking about the resource sharing community and how it already exists and operates, in 2022, we saw over 2 million requests. I'm excited to see what those numbers look like here as we come closer to the end of 2023 for this year and how much more growth we see. With those requests, we see a fill rate for the community for physical items at about 87% and a digital item fulfillment rate of at least 92%, with 97% of those requests getting filled by the first lender. And that's across about 1,000 active libraries using Rapido, RapidILO, or Alma resource sharing. So there's already a huge capacity of this community, and we're seeing that already. But there's even more potential in using that directory to build partnerships and connections. The resource sharing directory helps ease the process of becoming partners. There's no manual as it eliminates the manual input of you having to plug in your partner information and their locate profile information, as this is all contained in the directory entry. And partnering libraries can then just perform the copy action to pull that entry into their environment without having to do the work of entering it and the potential typos that come with that. Um, with that, the self-enrollment by libraries means that the directory entries have accurate information. It's less of a game of telephone. It's directly from the source of somebody putting that information in about their institution. And if something changes, like the shipping address or whatnot, the library can update their entry in the directory, and then that information gets disseminated to their partners. So you don't have to contact everybody via email and ask them to make an edit, to hope they don't make any errors in that edit, worry about any repercussions of the edit not being made, etc. That information that you put in the directory can be edited by your institution, and then it can get just automatically updated by partners who pull in the directory entry. Pull in the partner record from that directory entry. And I know that I come from working with Rapido libraries, and so obviously I see their directory as a potential for that flavor of resource sharing and the power of those connections for that community. However, it also has a potential and impact for libraries who are not using Rapido, who are using Alma resource sharing. And I see that in my work with Tim Jackson from SUNY Libraries in New York. I asked Tim if I could quote him to speak to the impact that he sees from using partners in the directory, and he sent me this wall of enthusiastic text speaking to the importance of connections for his libraries through the resource sharing directory. I'm not going to read this giant wall of text to you, but these are a few of the main points that Tim shared for his Alma libraries. He found that using the directory partners supported or enabled fast delivery between the partners. Directory entries and the partnerships from there supported automation at his libraries and supported efficient staff workflows. It supported connections with more partners beyond their network zone or beyond their consortia to increase request fulfillment. It's supported it's supported to simplify the request management process, and it simplified configuration between those partners, and all with using existing functionality for them to connect with one another. So to summarize, the resource sharing directory is a tool for the resource sharing community that supports building and finding connections between partners. It allows for accurate partner and it allows for accurate partner information between those partners, and it eases those connections. So with all of that being said as the why you might want to add your library to the resource sharing directory, I also want to address any concerns about how it can impact your volume or your workflow. The resource sharing directory, or adding your library to the resource sharing directory, doesn't open the floodgates. Just a reminder, there are other aspects that you're going to need to address in order to pursue those partnerships with one another. If you're a Rapido library, then it's Rapido pod terms or hybrid pod terms, and as Alma libraries, there are other steps involved too. So, you'll need to create partner records, which is simplified from the resource share using the resource sharing directory. You'll still need to define workflow profiles to attach partners, create ROTAs, ROTA assignment rules, and various rules like sending request rules, etc. So there are other pieces that need to come into play after you maybe find a partner in the directory. So adding your library to the directory isn't just going to result in a flood of requests and volume. There's going to be further conversations for you to have with your partners before you get there, before and establishing those resource sharing partnerships. So hopefully you're still with me on asking, how do I add my library to the resource sharing directory? So the roles that you'll need are general administrator or fulfillment administrator, or you'll need to collaborate with somebody at your library that does have these roles to work with them in getting your library added to the directory. The pathway for adding your library to the directory is configuration, fulfillment, menu, contribute to resource sharing directory, and then resource sharing directory member. So just what does that look like? This is our Alma environment, very familiar. In our configuration icon, we go to fulfillment menu and we find ourselves to the resource sharing directory member action there. That takes us to this screen, which gives you the option to add new member. From here, you can add an existing resource sharing library or a new resource sharing library. I anticipate the majority of libraries will be adding it from existing resource sharing libraries. After you make that selection, you're brought to page 1 out of a 3-page series here. The screenshot on the left shows you what it would look like if you were just designating that you're managing your requests in Alma, just some basic information and address details about your library. If you are designating that you manage your requests in Iliad, there are a few other fields that you'll need to fill out in adding your library to the directory. After you've done that first page, the second page, you can move on to the second page. The first thing here is to select supplies physical items. That's to indicate if you plan to lend physical items to libraries that you might partner with via the directory relationships or relationships that you establish via the directory. If so, then you will add participating items. Selecting to add participating items brings you a pop-up screen like this one below, where you name your group of participating items, and then you make distinctions about what that actually is going to look like or what that's going to be at your library based on the parameters of material type, item, policy, and location. And there are a variety of operators involved that that are available to you for making the distinctions at your library. So this example here, I'm saying that these various material types, as long as they don't have the item policy of in-library use only, and if they're in the location of my main library general collection, then they will be, I see them as things that I would be willing to lend to new partners or partners that I established through the resource sharing directory. Here's just another example of what that could look like for defining participating items. Again, it's flexible based on what you want that to look like at your library. You have the operators available to you of equals, not equals, is empty, is not empty, as you kind of sort through what you want that to look like. After you've made that addition of participating items to your directory entry, there you'll see the action there of add physical lending policy. Selecting that action brings you to a screen that looks like this, where you will, from the drop-down menu, select your participating items that you defined, and then distinguish other aspects of what it would look like to partner with your library. Here I'm saying that as a partner, you might expect a 6-day delivery period from me and a 112-day loan period. No cost, I'm going to be a reciprocal partner. I do allow renewals and a max of 2 renewals. This configuration here at this time does not mean that this is what's just automatically going to happen between you and your partner. You'll have pod terms, or you'll have terms of use that need to come into play to actually make these terms come through. But it does provide information to your partners, and that when they find you in the resource sharing directory, as to what it might look like to partner with your library. So once you've selected add and close, you'll then see that addition on that second page of the configuration here. Going to the third page, it just allows you to review the content that you added. And after you make that review or perform that review, make sure everything looks good to you, you can select save. So what's next? What's next really is finding those partners in the directory. As an Alma library, this might be useful to you to go via fulfillment, resource sharing partners, and looking through that partners list. You can also do this in Rapido. However, you can also find partners from the directory via the find partner workflow. Either way, this would help you sort of start searching for finding other libraries who might be willing resource sharing partners. After I get into the directory via fulfillment and partners, in the community tab, I can scroll through here and see the long list of partners already in the directory. I can also search a specific partner in the directory. Perhaps I've already had a conversation with them. They have the one item that, they're the one library that has the item that I can't find anywhere else, and they're willing to connect with me for this as a one-off for fulfilling this request. Maybe they're in my consortium. We're working on adding each other to rotas. Whatever the reason is, you could search their name in here once they've added themselves to the directory. You select the checkbox next to their name and then hit copy. And that's all there is to adding that partner to your environment. You'll now see them on the institution tab of this view. So the community tab was the directory, the institution tab shows all of my partners, and that they're now here just from me selecting that box and then hit copy. So while I have you here, I wanted to also acknowledge another configuration for you to consider. It's the data sharing profile. So adding your partners to adding your libraries to the directory is a way for you to start finding partners that you may want to connect with, and helps build those connections within the community. The data sharing profile is another configuration that supports those connections within the community. What does the data sharing profile do? It makes holdings discoverable by potential Rapido partners. It makes real-time availability accessible to Rapido partners. It gives them the same visibility that you're already used to in resource sharing services that they would get from a Z3950 or an SRU connection. It just shows them if you are a potential holder for this item at that time. It doesn't allow patron data to come through. It doesn't allow them to make requests on suppressed records. It doesn't automatically make you a lender in any way. It's not adding any other aspects there. It's just allowing a library to identify your library as a potential holder for these items. So while you're making decisions about adding your library to the directory, I would encourage you to also consider turning on the data sharing profile by just toggling that to yes. And then as we end today, I have some other resources relating to the directory and data sharing from our Knowledge Center sites that you can check out if you have further questions or want to engage with us. But I also will welcome your questions in the chat, and I will navigate to the chat now so that I can see what you might have shared with me already today. All right, I can now see the chat. I'm not seeing any questions in there yet at this time. I will give you all a little bit of time though, in case you have something to add into the chat so that we can address that today. I will give you my email address in the chat though, so in case there's something that I don't address via your chat questions today, that you can have a way to connect with me for us to discuss any items further. Okay, I'm still not seeing anything in the chat yet. I'm going to share the link for our Knowledge Center information on adding your library to the resource sharing directory. And our documentation about data sharing as well. Okay, everyone, I'm not seeing anything come into the chat. I will give you a little bit of time in case it takes a bit to type out your question, but I appreciate you joining today to hear a bit about the resource sharing directory, and I encourage you to connect with me if you have further questions at a later date. I see a thank you in the chat. I see that you're coming from a Rapido library, so your library is already in the resource sharing directory. So no action item for you to take there, but I would encourage you to check out that data sharing profile configuration. Okay, I am not seeing anything in the chat, so I am going to close our session for today. Please reach out if you want to connect at a later time. Thank you.